Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the TFS Liberty and watched the stars move past the viewing window. The ship moved through space on its regular patrol route along the neutral zone between human space and the Zephyrian Empire. For 200 years, the galaxy had known peace under the Galactic Concordat Treaty. Jake had served 15 years in the Terran Federation fleet and had never fired a shot in anger. The Liberty was not a warship in the traditional sense. She carried diplomatic staff and served as an escort for trade vessels moving between the different species' territories. Jake preferred it this way. He had joined the fleet to explore space and meet new species, not to fight wars that his grandfather had told him stories about. Dr. Lisa Martinez walked onto the bridge carrying her daily reports. She served as the chief xenobiologist and cultural liaison aboard the Liberty. Her job was to help smooth relations between humans and the other species they encountered during their patrols. She had studied alien cultures for 12 years and spoke 7 different alien languages fluently. "Good morning," Commander Martinez said as she handed him the reports. "The Aldorian merchant convoy we escorted yesterday made it safely to the trading station at Kepler Point. Their captain wanted me to pass along his thanks for the smooth journey." Jake smiled and took the reports. The Aldorians were always polite and grateful for human escort services. They had built their entire civilization around trade and commerce. Unlike some other species, they understood that peaceful relations meant better business for everyone involved. Captain Ben Carter joined them on the bridge. He commanded the small Marine detachment aboard the Liberty. His men were trained for boarding operations and security duty, but like Jake, they had never seen real combat. The Marines spent most of their time helping with cargo inspections and providing security for diplomatic meetings. "Sir, we just received a priority message from Fleet Command," Carter said. "There have been several attacks on civilian shipping in the Vega sector. 3 Aldorian freighters have gone missing in the past week." Jake frowned as he read the message details. The Vega sector sat in disputed territory between Zephyrian and Aldorian space. Officially, it was neutral ground under Concordat protection, but raiders sometimes operated in the area. Usually, these were small pirate groups looking for easy targets among the merchant ships. Dr. Martinez looked concerned. The missing ships were carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. If pirates took them, thousands of people could die from lack of medicine. Set course for the Vega sector, Jake ordered. "We need to investigate these attacks and make sure the shipping lanes are safe." The Liberty changed course and headed toward the troubled region. Jake had dealt with pirates before, and the usual procedure was simple. Most raiders fled when they saw a Federation warship approaching. The few who stayed to fight usually had old ships and poor weapons. A single patrol vessel like the Liberty could handle a dozen pirate ships without much trouble. They reached the Vega sector after 2 days of travel. Jake ordered his crew to scan for any signs of the missing freighters or their attackers. The sensor operator reported debris fields in 3 different locations, but no life signs from the missing ships. "Commander, I am reading some unusual energy signatures from the debris," Carter reported. "These do not look like typical pirate weapons." Dr. Martinez examined the sensor data and her expression grew worried. "These energy patterns match Zephyrian military-grade plasma cannons. Pirates do not have access to this kind of technology." Jake felt a cold chill run down his spine. If Zephyrian military forces were attacking civilian ships, they were violating the Concord Treaty. This could mean the start of something much worse than simple piracy. He ordered his crew to collect samples from the debris fields for analysis. The evidence clearly showed that advanced military weapons had destroyed the freighters. The attack patterns suggested coordinated strikes by multiple ships working together. This was not the work of random pirates looking for cargo to steal. While they investigated the attack sites, the Liberty received another priority message. Admiral Susan Blake wanted to speak with Jake immediately. She appeared on the main screen looking tired and worried. "Commander Harrison, we have a serious situation developing," Admiral Blake said. 6 more ships have been attacked in the past day. All of them were destroyed by military-grade weapons. We believe someone is trying to disrupt trade and cause tensions between the species. Jake reported his findings about the Zephyrian weapons signatures. Admiral Blake listened carefully and her expression grew darker. We are calling an emergency session of the Concordat Council, she said. Ambassador Paul Rogers will be attending along with representatives from all the major species. Your ship is ordered to provide escort for our diplomatic convoy to Harmony Station. Harmony Station sat in the center of neutral space and served as the meeting place for important diplomatic events. The station had been built after the Proxima Wars as a symbol of peace between the species. Jake had visited it several times during ceremonial events, but never for an emergency session. The Liberty joined 5 other Federation ships escorting the diplomatic convoy toward Harmony Station. Ambassador Rogers traveled aboard the flagship TFS Concorde along with his staff and security detail. The journey would take 4 days through space that was supposed to be perfectly safe under treaty protection. On the second day of their journey, the convoy detected ships following them. The vessels stayed at maximum sensor range, but they matched every course change the convoy made. Jake ordered his crew to try identifying the mysterious ships, but their sensor signatures were being masked by some kind of jamming system. Dr. Martinez studied the limited data they could gather about their followers. The ship configurations look Zephyrian, but I cannot be certain with all the interference they are generating. Captain Carter increased security alerts throughout the convoy and had his Marines ready for possible boarding actions. Jake hoped their followers were just curious observers, but his military training told him to prepare for the worst. On the third day, the following ships disappeared from sensors completely. Jake thought they might have given up and returned to their own territory. The convoy continued toward Harmony Station without further incident. They arrived at Harmony Station to find representatives from all the major galactic powers already in attendance. The Zephyrian delegation had arrived first and taken quarters in the main diplomatic section. The Kethver Collective and Aldorian Republic delegations were also present along with observers from several smaller species. Ambassador Rogers disembarked with his staff and headed for the main conference center. Jake remained aboard the Liberty as part of the station's security force. Dr. Martinez accompanied the ambassador as a cultural advisor while Captain Carter positioned his Marines at key locations around the diplomatic areas. The emergency session began with presentations about the recent attacks on civilian shipping. Evidence was presented showing the use of military-grade weapons against unarmed freighters. The Zephyrian representative denied any involvement and suggested that stolen weapons might be responsible. Ambassador Rogers presented the sensor data collected by the Liberty and other Federation ships. The evidence strongly suggested coordinated military action rather than random piracy. He called for a full investigation with representatives from all species working together to find the truth. The Zephyrian delegates stood and spoke in a cold voice. The Zephyrian Empire questions the validity of this so-called evidence. Human sensors could be mistaken or the data could be fabricated to cast blame on innocent parties. Dr. Martinez whispered something to Ambassador Rogers, who nodded grimly. Jake watched the proceedings from the security station and felt tension building in the conference room. Other delegates were taking sides and voices were being raised in anger. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout Harmony Station. Jake rushed to the nearest control panel and saw multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace around the station. The vessels were clearly military designs, and they were powering up weapon systems. The attack began without warning or demands for surrender. Plasma beams and missile salvos struck the station from multiple directions. Jake grabbed his communicator and tried to reach the diplomatic conference, but the internal communication system had been destroyed in the first wave of attacks. Emergency lighting flickered as power systems failed throughout the station. Jake fought his way through damaged corridors toward the conference center, but explosions rocked the station and debris blocked many passages. He could hear the hull groaning under the stress of multiple weapons impacts. The conference center was in ruins when Jake finally reached it. Bodies lay scattered among the wreckage of furniture and equipment. He found Dr. Martinez trapped under fallen debris, but she was still alive. Ambassador Rogers lay nearby, clutching a recording device in his hand. Jake helped Martinez to her feet and checked on the ambassador. Rogers was badly injured but conscious. He pressed the recording device into Jake's hand and whispered urgent words. The Zephyrian delegate left just before the attack began. Rogers gasped. This was planned. They are withdrawing from the Concordat. Get this message to Admiral Blake? The station shook with another series of explosions, and Jake knew they had to evacuate immediately. He helped Martinez. The rescue ships arrived 6 hours after Harmony Station was destroyed. Jake Harrison sat in the medical bay of the TFS Defender watching doctors treat Ambassador Rogers and Dr. Lisa Martinez. Of the 300 people who had been aboard the station, only 47 had survived the attack. The diplomatic conference that was supposed to prevent war had become the opening shot of a new galactic conflict. Admiral Susan Blake arrived aboard the fleet flagship TFS Enterprise 2 days later. She met with the survivors in the main briefing room to hear their accounts of what had happened. Jake handed her the recording device that Ambassador Rogers had saved during the attack. The recording contained the final minutes of the diplomatic session before the station was destroyed. Blake listened carefully as the Zephyrian delegate made his accusations against human evidence gathering. The timestamp showed he had left the conference exactly 12 minutes before the first weapons fired. This was clearly planned, Admiral Blake sighed grimly. They arranged the meeting to gather all the diplomatic leadership in one place, then eliminated everyone who might oppose their plans. Lieutenant Kelly Murphy entered the briefing room carrying intelligence reports from across the galaxy. She served as a reconnaissance specialist and had been monitoring communications from multiple star systems. The news she brought was not encouraging. Admiral, the Zephyrian Empire has officially withdrawn from the galactic Concordat, Murphy reported. They are claiming that other species violated the treaty first by conducting illegal weapons research. Zephyrian fleets are mobilizing across their territory and moving toward border systems. Blake studied the tactical displays showing Zephyrian fleet movements. Their forces outnumbered the combined fleets of all other species by almost 3 to 1. Worse, they had been building up their military strength for years, while other species focused on trade and diplomacy. Dr. Martinez, despite her injuries, insisted on attending the briefing. She had spent years studying Zephyrian culture and understood their military mindset better than most humans. Admiral, they have been planning this for decades, Martinez said weakly. Zephyrian society values strength and conquest above all else. They only agreed to the Concordat because they needed time to rebuild after the Proxima Wars. Now they believe they are strong enough to dominate the entire galaxy. Chief Engineer Tony Walsh joined the meeting with technical analysis of the weapons used against Harmony Station. His report showed that the Zephyrians had developed new plasma cannon designs that were far more powerful than anything covered by the treaty limitations. These weapons can crack the armor of our heaviest cruisers, Walsh explained. They have been working on this technology in secret while we focused on exploration and peaceful development. Our current ships are not designed to fight against this kind of firepower. Jake watched the faces of his fellow officers as the full scope of the situation became clear. The Federation fleet was built for exploration and escort duties, not major fleet combat. Their ships carried diplomatic personnel and scientific equipment, not heavy weapons and armor plating. Admiral Blake made her decision quickly, she ordered. All Federation vessels to begin immediate evacuation of civilian populations from border worlds that might be threatened by Zephyrian advance. The fleet would focus on saving lives rather than trying to fight a war they could not win with their current resources. Jake was assigned command of a small task force, including the Liberty and 4 other ships. His mission was to evacuate the colony world of New Denver, which sat only 2 jumps away from Zephyrian space. The planet had over 3 million inhabitants, including many families with children. The evacuation fleet reached New Denver as the first reports of Zephyrian attacks on other worlds began arriving. The colonists were cooperative but moving 3 million. People required careful organization and multiple trips by transport ships. Jake estimated they would need at least a week to complete the evacuation. Captain Ben Carter coordinated ground operations with the colonial government while Jake organized the space-based logistics. Dr. Martinez, despite her injuries, volunteered to help calm frightened civilians who were afraid to leave their homes. Many colonists had lived on New Denver for generations and did not want to abandon everything they had built on the fourth day of evacuation operations. Long-range sensors detected incoming ships. Jake hoped they might be additional Federation vessels sent to help with the civilian rescue, but the sensor signatures were wrong. The approaching fleet was definitely Zephyrian, and they were coming fast. Jake ordered all civilian transports to accelerate their departure schedule. The remaining colonists would have to be loaded onto any available ship, regardless of comfort or safety regulations. Captain Carter began organizing the colonial militia to help defend the evacuation sites if necessary. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Denver system. Jake counted over 60 warships, including several massive dreadnoughts that he had never seen before. The Federation task force had only 5 ships, and they were all designed for escort duty, not fleet combat. General Frank Davis appeared on the communication screen from the Surface Command Center. He had served in the Federation military for 30 years and understood the tactical situation immediately. Commander Harrison, "We need at least 6 more hours to finish the evacuation," Davis reported. "The spaceports are packed with civilians waiting for transport, and our ships are already overloaded. Can your task force delay the Zephyrian advance?" Jake looked at his tactical display and calculated the odds. His 5 ships against 60 enemy warships was not a fight they could win. But 6 hours might be enough time to save the remaining civilians if his crews were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. All ships formed defensive formation around the evacuation transports, Jake ordered. "We are going to buy our people as much time as possible." The Zephyrian fleet approached slowly, and Jake received a communication from their commander. The alien officer appeared on his screen wearing elaborate military decorations and speaking in the harsh Zephyrian language. "Human ships, you are ordered to surrender immediately," the Zephyrian commander declared. "Any resistance will be met with complete destruction. Your pathetic vessels cannot hope to stand against the might of the Empire." Jake responded in English, knowing that most Zephyrian officers understood human languages even if they refused to speak them. "Federation vessels will not surrender while civilian evacuations are in progress. We are prepared to defend innocent lives against unprovoked aggression." The Zephyrian commander laughed harshly. "Your Federation has been weak for too long. Today we begin the restoration of proper order to this galaxy. Surrender now or be destroyed." Jake cut the communication and prepared his ships for battle. The Federation vessels spread out to provide maximum coverage for the civilian transport still loading refugees from the planet's surface. Every minute they could delay the attack would save hundreds more lives. The battle began when the Zephyrian fleet opened fire at maximum range. Their new plasma cannons proved to be devastatingly effective against Federation armor. The TFS Guardian was destroyed in the first exchange of fire, and the TFS Horizon was badly damaged and forced to withdraw. Jake maneuvered the Liberty to cover the damaged ship while his remaining vessels continued firing at the advancing enemy fleet. The Federation weapons were accurate, but they barely scratched the heavy armor of the Zephyrian dreadnoughts. His small task force was being overwhelmed, but they kept fighting. Captain Carter reported from the planet's surface that the last civilian transports were finally loaded and ready to depart. Jake ordered all ships to begin withdrawal toward the hyperspace jump point, but the Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept them. The TFS Valiant sacrificed herself to allow the civilian ships to escape. Captain Sarah Lee rammed her damaged vessel into a Zephyrian cruiser, creating an explosion that opened a gap in the enemy formation. The transport ships carrying over 2 million refugees made it safely to hyperspace. Jake watched the tactical display as more Zephyrian ships entered the system. Instead of pursuing the escaped civilians, they began moving toward New Denver itself. He realized with horror that they intended to attack the planet even though most of the population had already been evacuated. The orbital bombardment began 30 minutes later. Zephyrian dreadnoughts positioned themselves around New Denver and opened fire with their massive plasma cannons. They were not targeting military installations or industrial sites. They were deliberately attacking city schools, hospitals, and residential areas. Jake watched helplessly from the edge of the system as the planet burned. Over 500,000 people who had not been evacuated were still on the surface when the bombardment began. The Zephyrians were not trying to conquer the world, they were trying to send a message through mass murder. The attack continued for 6 hours, until nothing remained alive on the planet's surface. New Denver had been transformed from a thriving agricultural world into a burned wasteland. The Zephyrian fleet then departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind only death and destruction. Jake transmitted a full report of the attack to Admiral Blake, including detailed recordings of the deliberate targeting of civilian areas. The evidence was clear that this was not a military operation but an act of genocide designed to terrorize. 3 weeks after New Denver burned, Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of a ship he barely recognized. The TFS Liberty had been completely rebuilt at the hidden military shipyard at Volf 359. What had once been a diplomatic escort vessel now bristled with weapon systems and armor plating that could withstand direct hits from Zephyrian PLASMA cannons. Admiral Blake had not been exaggerating when she promised the galaxy would see what humans were truly capable of achieving. Across Federation space, massive industrial complexes that had been disguised as civilian research facilities were now operating around the clock. The galaxy was discovering that humans had been quietly preparing for this possibility for over a century. Colonel Danny Wright briefed Jake on the new mission parameters aboard the rebuilt Liberty. Wright commanded an elite special forces unit that had been training in secret for decades. His men specialized in operations that other species would consider impossible or insane. Commander Harrison, your new assignment is quite different from escort duty, Wright explained. The human expeditionary force has been tasked with reconnaissance and psychological warfare operations behind enemy lines. Your diplomatic experience makes you valuable for understanding how other species think and react. Jake studied the mission files that Wright provided. The Federation had detailed intelligence about every major Zephyrian military installation and supply depot. This information had been gathered over years by operatives who had posed as traders and researchers. The depth of preparation was staggering. Dr. Lisa Martinez had also been reassigned to the expeditionary force. Her knowledge of alien cultures was now being used to predict enemy behavior and identify weak points in their military organization. She worked with a team of analysts who had been studying Zephyrian psychology for decades. The Zephyrians believe that overwhelming force and brutal displays of power will cause their enemies to surrender quickly. Martinez explained to Jake. They expect other species to behave as they would when faced with superior firepower. They do not understand that humans respond differently to threats against our families. Lieutenant Kelly Murphy joined them, carrying intelligence reports from deep reconnaissance missions. Her teams had been infiltrating Zephyrian space using ships disguised as civilian vessels. The information they gathered painted a picture of an empire that was confident in its military superiority, but unprepared for the kind of war that humans were about to unleash. The Zephyrian military follows predictable patterns, Murphy reported. They concentrate their forces at major strategic locations and rely on overwhelming firepower to win battles quickly. Their logistics networks are centralized and vulnerable to disruption. Most importantly, they have no experience fighting an enemy that refuses to surrender when faced with superior numbers. Captain Rick Stone entered the briefing room wearing the uniform of a starfighter pilot. He commanded the newly formed Ghost Squadron, which flew fighters equipped with technology that the galaxy had never seen before. His ships could operate in complete sensor stealth and deliver precision strikes against targets that enemy forces never saw coming. Admiral Blake wants us to demonstrate human capabilities in a series of coordinated strikes, Stone explained. The goal is not just to damage enemy facilities, but to show them that nowhere in their territory is safe from our reach. We want them to understand that their advantage in numbers means nothing if we can strike anywhere at any time. The first target was the Zephyrian fortress at Kepler Station. The massive military complex guarded the main hyperspace route between Zephyrian territory and the neutral systems where they were expanding their influence. Intelligence reports indicated that over 50,000 enemy troops were stationed there, along with a substantial fleet. Jake studied the tactical analysis of Kepler station and marveled at the audacity of the planned attack. The Federation force consisted of only 12 ships, including the Liberty and Stone's fighter squadron. Traditional military doctrine would require at least 100 ships to assault such a heavily defended target. Dr. Amy Chun joined the mission as a technical specialist. She had spent years working on classified weapons projects that were now being deployed for the first time. Her team had developed kinetic bombardment systems that could level entire cities without using traditional explosives or violating old treaty restrictions that no longer applied. The weapons work by accelerating dense metal projectiles to incredible velocities, Chun explained. When they impact a target, the kinetic energy release is equivalent to nuclear weapons but produces no radiation or fallout. We can destroy military targets with surgical precision while minimizing collateral damage to surrounding areas. The strike force departed from Volf 359 under complete communication silence. Jake had never seen such sophisticated stealth technology deployed on Federation ships. The vessels could travel through hyperspace without creating the energy signatures that would normally alert enemy sensors to their presence. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system and began their approach using passive sensors only. Stone's fighter squadron deployed first, moving in complete stealth toward the outer sensor platforms that protected the main station. Their mission was to eliminate early warning systems without triggering any alarms. Jake watched the tactical display as Ghost Squadron reached their targets. The fighters used focused energy beams to destroy sensor equipment while leaving the platforms themselves intact. To Zephyrian observers, it would appear that the sensors had simply malfunctioned, rather than being attacked. With the early warning systems neutralized, the main force began their approach to Kepler Station. Jake had never seen such precise coordination between multiple units operating independently. Every ship knew exactly what targets they were responsible for and when to begin their attacks. Colonel Wright's Special Forces teams had infiltrated the station weeks earlier disguised as maintenance workers. At the precise moment that the fleet attack began, they struck from within, disabling defensive systems and causing confusion among the garrison troops. The Zephyrians found themselves under attack from directions they had never anticipated. The battle for Kepler Station lasted only 47 minutes. Federation forces demonstrated combat capabilities that shocked even their own commanders. The supposedly impregnable fortress fell with minimal casualties among the human attackers, while Zephyrian losses were catastrophic. Jake participated in the final assault on the station command center. He watched Zephyrian officers surrender, rather than continue fighting against an enemy they could not understand or predict. These were hardened military veterans who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced opponents who fought with such calculated precision. The aftermath of the battle provided valuable intelligence about Zephyrian military capabilities and psychology. Prisoners revealed that their commanders had been completely unprepared for the human style of warfare. They expected massive fleet engagements with predictable outcomes based on numerical superiority. Dr. Martinez interviewed captured officers to understand their mental state after the defeat. The results of her analysis would influence future Federation strategy and tactics. They keep asking how we could have attacked with so few ships, Martinez reported. In their military tradition, larger forces always defeat smaller ones. The concept of using stealth technology and special operations to overcome numerical disadvantages is completely foreign to their thinking. Major Sam Miller arrived at Kepler Station with engineering teams tasked with establishing a permanent Federation presence. His units could construct fortified positions and supply depots with remarkable speed using modular components that had been designed specifically for rapid deployment in hostile territory. Within 72 hours, Miller's teams had transformed the captured station into a forward operating base for further human operations in Zephyrian space. The engineering accomplishment amazed even veteran Federation officers who had worked with construction crews for years. News of the Kepler station. Victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than official military communications. Other species began to realize that they had fundamentally misunderstood human capabilities and intentions. The peaceful traders and diplomats had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous. Admiral Jack Barnes commanded the Federation fleet that was now advancing deeper into Zephyrian territory. His ships used tactics that combined overwhelming firepower with precise intelligence to systematically dismantle enemy military infrastructure while avoiding unnecessary destruction of civilian targets. The Zephyrian Empire responded to human advances by mobilizing their entire military for a massive counterattack. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history with over 800 warships converging on the Centauri system where Federation forces had established their main forward base. Jake received orders to join Barnes' fleet for what would become known as the Battle of Centauri Prime. Intelligence reports indicated that the Zephyrians planned to use their numerical superiority to crush human forces in a single decisive engagement. They believed that destroying the Federation fleet would end human resistance and restore their dominance over the galaxy. The Federation response surprised everyone, including many human commanders. Instead of concentrating, the destruction of the Zephyrian Grand Fleet at Centauri Prime sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy that went far beyond simple military defeat. Jake Harrison watched intelligence reports flooding in from every major star system as species that had remained neutral began scrambling to determine which side they should support in the expanding war. Admiral Blake had established her new headquarters aboard the massive dreadnought TFS Vengeance, which had been constructed in secret for over 5 years. The ship was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets single-handedly. Its existence proved that humans had been preparing for this war much longer than anyone had imagined. Captain Lori Price had been promoted to lead the newly formed Psychological Operations Division after her success at Centauri Prime. Her teams had discovered that targeted propaganda could be more effective than conventional weapons when dealing with species that were unused to prolonged warfare. The key is understanding how each species processes fear and doubt, Price explained to Jake during a strategy briefing. Zephyrians respond to displays of superior strength, but other species have different psychological triggers. The Kethver Collective values logical analysis while the Aldorian Republic focuses on economic consequences. Dr. Lisa Martinez had expanded her cultural analysis unit to include specialists in every known alien psychology. Her reports influenced Federation strategy across multiple star systems as human forces adapted their tactics to exploit the specific weaknesses of different enemy species. The Zephyrian Empire is fragmenting faster than we anticipated, Martinez reported. Their military culture cannot cope with repeated defeats by a supposedly inferior species. Regional commanders are beginning to act independently rather than following orders from the central government. Major Sam Miller coordinated the massive logistics operation that supported human forces operating hundreds of light years from Federation territory. His engineering teams had perfected rapid construction techniques that could establish fully operational military bases on any world within 72 hours of landing. "We are building infrastructure faster than the enemy can destroy it," Miller explained. "Every system we capture becomes a forward supply depot that supports further advances. The Zephyrians cannot match our construction capabilities because they never developed the necessary technology." Lieutenant Kelly Murphy had been promoted to head the Strategic Intelligence Division after her reconnaissance teams provided crucial information for every major Federation victory. Her operatives had infiltrated enemy territory so thoroughly that human commanders sometimes knew Zephyrian plans before the aliens themselves did. Murphy presented her latest intelligence analysis to the senior command staff aboard the Vengeance. The information painted a picture of an empire in complete collapse as military defeats, combined with internal political chaos to undermine Zephyrian authority across their territory. 3 more Zephyrian sector governors have declared independence from the central government, Murphy reported. They are offering to negotiate separate peace agreements with Federation forces rather than continue fighting a war they cannot win. The empire that once controlled 47 star systems now directly governs fewer than 20. Jake had been assigned to lead prisoner of war recovery operations after intelligence reports revealed that Zephyrian forces were systematically torturing and executing captured humans. His mission was to rescue Federation personnel before they could be murdered in acts of desperate revenge. The prison facility at Rigel Base held over 2,000 human prisoners, including civilian colonists captured during the early Zephyrian advances. Intelligence indicated that the camp commandant had orders to execute all prisoners if Federation forces approached the system. Colonel Ganny Wright briefed Jake on the rescue operation, which would require precision timing and flawless execution. The Special Forces teams would have only minutes to neutralize the guards and secure the prisoners before reinforcements could arrive from nearby. Military installations. The approach to Rigel Base demonstrated the full extent of human technological advancement since the war began. Jake's ships used stealth systems, so sophisticated that they could operate within visual range of enemy sensors without being detected. The technology represented decades of secret research and development. Wright's Special Forces teams infiltrated the prison compound using personal cloaking devices that rendered them completely invisible to Zephyrian sensors. The guards were neutralized with weapons that left no evidence of human involvement. To observers, it would appear that the facility personnel had simply vanished. Jake coordinated the evacuation of prisoners, while technical teams downloaded intelligence from the camp computer systems. What they found was evidence of systematic torture and planned executions that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The recordings would later be broadcast throughout the galaxy. Dr. Martinez interviewed the rescued prisoners to document the treatment they had received. Her reports provided valuable intelligence about Zephyrian military psychology, but also revealed the depths of cruelty that their captors had displayed toward helpless civilians. They seemed to take pleasure in causing pain and fear, Martinez reported. This was not military interrogation, but deliberate cruelty designed to break the spirits of their captives. The guards would describe in detail how they planned to execute prisoners when Federation forces were defeated. The rescue operation at Rigel Base was completed without a single casualty among the prisoners or rescue teams. Jake watched as the freed humans were transported to safety aboard medical ships equipped with the most advanced treatment facilities in the galaxy. Many of the survivors required extensive psychological counseling to recover from their ordeal. The footage from Rigel Base was broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. The recordings showed clear evidence of war crimes that shocked even species that had remained neutral in the conflict. Public opinion began shifting dramatically against the Zephyrian Empire as civilized governments condemned the systematic torture of prisoners. Captain Rick Stone led increasingly daring raids deep into enemy territory using fighter squadrons equipped with the latest stealth technology. His pilots could strike targets anywhere in Zephyrian space and return safely to Federation bases. The psychological impact of these raids was devastating to enemy morale. Enemy forces never know when or where we will strike next, Stone explained during a mission briefing. They are forced to defend everywhere, which means they cannot concentrate their remaining strength for effective counterattacks. Fear of our raids is more damaging to their war effort than the physical destruction we cause. Admiral Jack Barnes commanded the systematic conquest of Zephyrian territory using tactics that minimized casualties while maximizing psychological impact. His forces would surround enemy installations and broadcast surrender demands that detailed exactly what would happen if resistance continued. Most enemy commanders chose to surrender rather than face destruction by weapons they could not match, Barnes reported. The few who resist are eliminated so quickly that other garrisons lose the will to fight. We are winning this war through superior technology and intelligence rather than massive casualties, the Kethver collective approached Federation representatives with offers of technological cooperation after analyzing the military situation. Their scientists were fascinated by human weapons technology and wanted to establish research partnerships that would benefit both species. Dr. Amy Chun led negotiations with Kethver technical specialists who offered to share their advanced computer systems in exchange for access to human kinetic bombardment technology. The resulting agreements would reshape galactic science for generations to come. The Aldorian Republic faced internal civil war as different factions debated whether to support the Zephyrian Empire or seek accommodation with Federation forces. Jake was assigned to escort Aldorian diplomats who wanted to negotiate separate peace agreements with human representatives. The Aldorian peace delegation was led by Trade Minister Valtak, who had worked with human merchants for decades. He understood that Federation victory was inevitable and wanted to position his people on the winning side before the war ended. Minister Valtak, we have no quarrel with the Aldorian people, Jake assured the nervous diplomat. Your species never attacked human colonies or participated in war crimes against our civilians. We are willing to discuss mutual cooperation once the current conflict is resolved. The negotiations with various Aldorian factions demonstrated human diplomatic skill that impressed neutral observers throughout the galaxy. Federation representatives offered generous terms to species that abandoned the Zephyrian alliance while making it clear that continued resistance would result in complete military defeat. Meanwhile, Zephyrian resistance began collapsing across multiple star systems as regional commanders realized that central government authority no longer existed. Some sectors attempted to negotiate independent surrenders while others simply abandoned their military installations and fled toward the galactic rim. The Battle of Proxima Centauri marked the final major engagement of the war when the remnants of the Zephyrian fleet made a desperate last stand at their original homeworld. Admiral Blake personally. 5 years had passed since the Zephyrian Empire surrendered and Jake Harrison barely recognized the galaxy he now helped govern. From his office aboard the orbital station above Proxima Centauri, he could see the rebuilt cities that had risen from the ashes of the final battle. The former Zephyrian homeworld had become a symbol of the new galactic order where human protection enabled peaceful prosperity. Admiral Blake had been appointed as the first Director General of the Galactic Security Council, which replaced the old Concordat system that had failed to prevent war. The new organization was built around human military superiority, but included representatives from every species that demonstrated commitment to peaceful cooperation. Dr. Lisa Martinez served as Chief Cultural Advisor, helping former enemies adapt to the new reality of human-dominated space. Her work had proven that even the most militaristic species could learn to value trade and diplomacy when the alternative was facing Federation military power. The Zephyrian people have made remarkable progress in adopting peaceful institutions, Martinez reported during the monthly sector briefing. Their educational system now emphasizes scientific research and commercial development rather than military conquest. The younger generation shows no interest in returning to the old ways of aggressive expansion. Lieutenant Colonel Kelly Murphy had been promoted to head the Galactic Intelligence Service, which monitored potential threats to the new peace. Her network of operatives ensured that no species could secretly develop military capabilities that might threaten civilian populations. We maintain surveillance on every major government and military organization in known space, Murphy explained to Jake. Any attempt to build weapons of mass destruction or organize aggressive military forces is detected immediately. Most species have learned that cooperation with our monitoring efforts is much preferable to the alternatives. The Human Defense Corps had grown into the largest military force in galactic history with bases in every major star system. Unlike the old Zephyrian Empire, which ruled through fear, the Federation maintained order through demonstrated capability and the promise of protection for peaceful species. Major General Sam Miller commanded the rapid response forces that could deploy to any trouble spot within hours of receiving a distress call. His troops were equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy and trained to handle any conceivable threat to civilian populations. Our deployment capability has eliminated the possibility of regional conflicts escalating into major wars, Miller reported. When disputes arise between species, we can position peacekeeping forces before violence begins. Most problems are resolved through negotiation. Once our ships arrive in the affected systems, the economic benefits of the new order had exceeded even optimistic projections. Galactic trade had increased by over 400%, as human security guarantees eliminated the risks that had previously plagued interstellar commerce. Species that had once spent enormous resources on military forces now invested in peaceful development. Captain Rickstone commanded the Merchant Marine Protection Service, which escorted civilian vessels through areas that might pose security risks. His pilots used the same advanced technology that had won the war but now applied it to ensuring safe passage for traders and explorers. We have not lost a single civilian vessel to piracy or hostile action in over 18 months, Stone reported with pride. The knowledge that Federation forces will respond immediately to any attack has eliminated most criminal activity in space. Legitimate commerce flourishes when merchants know they are protected. Jake had been promoted to Sector Admiral, responsible for governing 12-star systems that had once been part of the Zephyrian Empire. His administration demonstrated that human rule could be both effective and benevolent when populations cooperated with Federation authority. The former Zephyrian territories were now among the most prosperous regions in the galaxy. Human investment in infrastructure and education had transformed worlds that had been military strongholds into centers of peaceful commerce and scientific research. Dr. Amy Chun led the technology-sharing initiative which provided advanced Federation science to species that met strict criteria for peaceful behavior. The program had accelerated galactic development while ensuring that dangerous technologies remained under human control. We have shared medical advances that have eliminated diseases which had plagued entire species for millennia, Chun reported. Our agricultural technology has ended food shortages on dozens of worlds. In return, we receive cooperation with our security requirements and access to unique local resources. The Kethver Collective had become humanity's closest allies after their scientists formed research partnerships with Federation institutions. Their advanced computer systems combined with human weapons. Technology had produced innovations that benefited all peaceful species. Ambassador Paul Rogers had survived his injuries from the Harmony Station attack and now served as the senior diplomatic representative to non-human governments. His experience during the final days of the Old Concordat made him uniquely qualified to prevent misunderstandings that might threaten the new peace. The key to maintaining galactic stability is ensuring that every species understands the consequences of aggression, Rogers explained. We do not seek to dominate other cultures, but we will not tolerate threats to innocent civilians. The galaxy has learned that human patience has limits. The few remaining Zephyrian military officers who had been responsible for war crimes served their sentences in rehabilitation facilities designed to reform rather than simply punish. The contrast with their own treatment of prisoners demonstrated human commitment to justice rather than revenge. Colonel Danny Wright supervised the prisoner rehabilitation programs, which had achieved remarkable success in changing the attitudes of former enemies. Even hardened Zephyrian veterans had learned to appreciate the benefits of peaceful cooperation over military conquest. These individuals committed terrible crimes during the war, Wright reported, but they are still sentient beings capable of learning better ways. Many former prisoners now work in civilian occupations and contribute positively to their communities. Redemption is possible when people are given genuine opportunities to change. The anniversary of the New Denver massacre was commemorated throughout human space as a reminder of why the Federation maintained such powerful military forces. The memorial ceremonies emphasized that peaceful people must remain strong enough to defend themselves against those who would exploit weakness. Jake attended the memorial service on the rebuilt colony world, where over 2 million refugees had returned to establish new communities. The planet was now more prosperous than ever before under Federation protection, but the monument to the victims served as a permanent warning against complacency. We remember those who died not to nurture hatred, but to ensure that such tragedies never happen again, Jake addressed the gathered crowds. The price of peace is eternal vigilance and the strength to act when evil threatens innocent lives. We have built a galaxy where children can grow up without fear because we refuse to forget the lessons of the past. The Aldorian Republic had been reorganized as a federation of autonomous worlds that cooperated with human security requirements while maintaining their traditional focus on trade and commerce. Their merchant fleets now operated under Federation protection and had expanded into previously dangerous regions of space. The minor species that had remained neutral during the war found themselves prospering under the new order as Federation forces eliminated the pirates and raiders that had previously threatened their colonies. Many requested formal alliance agreements that provided Federation protection in exchange for cooperation with galactic security requirements. Captain Laurie Price led the Cultural Exchange program, which promoted understanding between different species while ensuring that peaceful values were reinforced throughout the galaxy. Her work had proven that former enemies could become productive partners when given proper guidance and incentives. The transformation has been remarkable, Price reported. Species that have been locked in ancient feuds for centuries now work together on joint projects. The key is providing security that allows trust to develop naturally over time. Fear of external threats has been replaced by confidence in Federation protection. The galactic communication networks now carried news of scientific discoveries and cultural achievements rather than reports of military conflicts and territorial disputes. Federation censorship prevented the spread of propaganda that might encourage aggressive behavior while allowing free discussion of peaceful topics. Academic institutions throughout the galaxy offered courses in human history and philosophy as species sought to understand the principles that had enabled one people to achieve such remarkable success. The Federation encouraged this educational effort while ensuring that military technologies remained restricted. Jake often reflected on how completely the galaxy had changed since that day when Harmony Station burned and war seemed inevitable. The peaceful exploration and diplomacy that had once characterized human space travel was now the norm throughout known space under Federation protection. The industrial capacity that had produced the weapons to win the war was now focused on building the infrastructure for galactic prosperity.